Okay, so this is the first episode of Matt Rants that we are doing on Twitch. Overall, this is Matt Rants 101. We made it, guys. We're at 101. Now, for some of you guys that are just tuning in and that are new to all this, that doesn't matter at all. But we are doing this every Monday. We're also testing out the limits of a new webcam, a new old webcam. I've had this webcam for a while, never had the chance to use it. As you can tell, it doesn't look all that good. But as of right now, it's what we can do. We make do with what we have. Very, very low budget here. So, let's see here. We're talking about a bunch of different stories today. And also we're going to see if our motto from our YouTube channel, which our YouTube channel those guys play, if you don't know, our motto is, if something can go wrong, it will. So let's see if that transfers over here as well. And we're talking about a bunch of different things today. We're talking about the Soldier Boy, a new Soldier Boy game console, which I've said that I wouldn't be talking about this over at our Those Guys Play YouTube channel, so I think that we'll try not to. I'll try to not put that over there, but we're going to talk about it here. We're talking about Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford and his potentially illegal adventures. Medieval Times is somehow involved. What the hell? I don't know how the hell that ended up being involved, but it will be. GameStop being sold? Question mark. Very, very YouTube thumbnail-esque. We're talking about the Sega Nomad and apparently how that's relevant in 2019. We're talking about the SNES Nintendo Switch leak, if you will. There was some data mining. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And a potential mini Nintendo Switch in 2019 or a large Nintendo Switch or both could be on Nintendo's radar for 2019. So, before we begin and before we talk about all these topics, also want to mention as well that in between we'll have little chat breaks, so I'll try to talk to you guys about anything you're asking, any questions, anything like that in the chat. I'll respond in between different stories. So, oh, that's weird. Live is showing me weird in Twitch. Let me see. Am I doing live good on the Twitch? Looks like I'm doing live good. I mean, my preview is messed up, but it's showing my stream. Yeah, for me, it's saying that my stream is healthy. So I'm just gonna keep on doing this, assuming that I'm A-okay, and that it's just my computer that's being weird. Anyway, so let's talk about our first story, which is a new Soldier Boy game console, which I thought he was done. He talked about bossing up, quote unquote, and I thought that meant that we were going to be, I was going to be free of talking about him until we're talking about, Nintendo suing him. But apparently that's not the case. So he released a quote-unquote console, a new console that looks straight up like a PSP. I want to make sure I get the exact name right. He also has it on his website. He's selling it for $100, but it's a sale. So if you wanna get a good deal on a sale, it is $99, not $200. Oh no, it's sold out. It's sold out already. Oh no. But actually, no, it's sold out in blue. What about in black? Oh, nope, sold out. What about in red? Oh, no. So, yeah, so this thing looks like a PSP. It's called an MPS. What's funny is I have something like this in my collection called the PvP Lite 3000. And the reason why I got it is because I want to use it on a future episode of Clone Corner. And we have Clone Corner over at our Those Guys Play channel. But it is just so funny. And also, let's look at the specs here, by the way, for this system. The specs here are, let's see here, color. Okay, thank you for telling me what the color is. Size, 9 by 3 times 72 times 126 millimeters. Material is plastic. Whoa. Resolution, 480 by 272. Screen inch, 4.3 inches. And memory, 8 gigabytes. Package includes one MP5 game player. So, we don't know if this has games on it, which, to be fair, if it doesn't, and you can just load your ROMs on later, I wouldn't hate it as much as I think a lot of other people would hate it. And the reason why is because I have no problem if you release something. Yes, you should try to release it so that, there's like a little bit of a door between you and putting your own ROMs on it. My problem, if you guys don't know, if you guys haven't seen our older stuff on Those Guys Play, my problem with this is that Soldier Boy is putting his own, well, rather not his own, is putting other games on it that are already licensed, that are, and heck, they're not even like they're abandonware or something like that, or this, stuff that no one will ever look at again. This is stuff that Nintendo, Sony, and Sega are regularly putting out in different ways, either, through classic editions, through the Switch, through mobile ports and things like that, in the PlayStation's situation on their own digital store. So to have Soldier Boy continuously do this, and now to then say that he quote unquote manned up, bossed up. Sorry, he bossed up, and then he took these off of his Twitter. To then just put this up, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I honestly just don't get it. It's extremely confusing to me because I try to do things by the book. All right, I try to just sit here, talk to you guys about stuff, maybe do some other types of videos as well, like reviews and things like that. I try to do what I can, but I sit back and I'm like, could you just imagine if I just, not even like it's making a repro necessarily, it's making a multi-cart and acting like you just have the right to do it, and then calling yourself a businessman and then saying you want to get into the esports arena and all this stuff. Even putting the slurs aside, which I don't want to do, but even putting the homophobic slurs aside, it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I just don't understand how he thinks this is appropriate. He tweeted about it. Don't have that tweet up. Not sure if that's been removed, but it is just hilarious that he looked at this, I would imagine, as, oh, Nintendo got on my ass, so what about Sony? And it's like, Sony will also get on your ass. I assume there's no PSP games, and obviously this thing can't run PSP games, I would imagine. This portable multimedia player, quote unquote. Also, by the way, it does do TV out in the off chance that you've ever wanted to feel disappointed about something, but also on your television. It is just frankly hilarious to me. I just wanted to mention it because it's not that I'm enraged at this point. I'm just confused. Because before I was like, I'm not to say that I wasn't confused before, but it was just like, are you serious? And then the homophobic comments came out and I was like, are you freaking serious? And then this, and I don't know how to react other than to laugh uncontrollably. And for any of you out there that are saying, oh, but you're just giving him free publicity, you're just, spreading the word on these. The word to who? I mean, honestly, who wants these? Other than, to be fair, other other YouTubers that actually want to, do reviews, for their fan base and things like that. But who actually wants to do this, though? Like, seriously, I cannot imagine someone going, oh, man, I really want one of these, unless they are a huge Soulja Boy fan and they just want to give back to him in some way or another. But I honestly cannot imagine who would want one of these. This is just hilariously odd, just to say the least. Either way, though, let's move on to our next topic. Before we do, let's check the chat to see if there's any. Nope, there's nobody. All right, let's move on to our next story about Randy Pitchford, the Gearbox CEO, who's winning everybody's hearts. No, he's not. Dear fucking God. So basically, the deal with Randy Pitchford is he, if this was just these allegations and he did not comment, frankly, I think it would have been better for him than if he commented. So, what happened? So there's a lawsuit going on against him due to the fact that he allegedly took $12 million and used it, that could have been used and should have been used for the company and to potentially fund Borderlands 2, or at the very least to pay people, right? Even before paying them to do new projects, to pay them for other projects, because that should be company money. He allegedly illegally siphoned $12 million to his own personal account. Now, if it just ended there, I probably wouldn't be talking about this. But the problem is that it not only does it not end there, but a lot of other news sites or YouTubers, and I understand if you're worried about, your video being demonetized, I totally get it. But there is some other stuff here that I really think, I don't know, was that a voice crack? What the fuck? But either way, there's other stuff here that I really think we should talk about and that really do matter. So not only has he been accused of stealing this money, which, yes, embezzlement is terrible, but sadly it happens. Welcome to corporate America. It shouldn't happen. should not happen, but I feel like that's just something that people do to screw over the little guy, and we should have people who are at that level, CEOs and people like that, to be more accountable rather than being able to do things like this both illegally and using legal loopholes to do little things like this. Like my favorite is when someone who's fired from a company from doing something terrible gets, I know it's technically their stock, but they still get a payout of millions of dollars, and it's like, what? Like, I've never heard of someone who isn't a CEO being accused of something like sexual harassment and being able to get millions of dollars on the side. Now, but again, the first issue is, hey, he actually is being sued for that 12 million. But also, allegedly, that he apparently dropped or left a USB stick, a USB drive, containing underage pornographic content, and we didn't know where it was. Apparently it was at a company event. That was just alleged in the lawsuit. But Randy Pitchford came in and he said, no, we gotta get this record straight. It was a medieval times. Well, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Randy, for telling us that it was a medieval times. I mean, many of us have left USB sticks with pornography. Not that type, but pornography at a medieval times. No, so that's the first thing he said. He was like, actually it was at a medieval times. Thanks, Randy. And then he said that it was a cam girl. Again, thank you for getting vivid about this, Randy. And then he said that she was not underage. She was 18 years old, which, okay. I mean, again, it's just odd. And then, by the way, too, if he could have at least said it was because it was of sexual nature, I'd be like, okay, like that's why you would download a cam girl's video to your USB thumb drive. I don't know why it would be that same drive that you have other company secrets on. I guess because it was a corporate event, he brought that to the event and then just left it there. Either way, he said it was because he likes magic, which, look, I don't kink shame. But then he said, no. Again, not sexual, not kink. He likes magic, and he thinks that what this woman was doing was akin to a magic show. All right. Randy, I'm not going to say that I don't believe you, but I'm going to say that I don't believe you. Now, look, I'm not saying that this person who's alleging this of him, that they're 100% right as well in what they're claiming, because if what they're claiming is true, they're saying that it's not just that one video on Pitchford's USB stick. There was more, because what Pitchford then said was, hey, so basically, because the whole Pitchford comment was, yeah, so 18, she's 18, cam girl, it's because what she was doing on camera was magic. All right. And then that someone at the medieval times tried to blackmail him because they saw that there were other company secrets on there. He gave that person swag, but didn't call it blackmail. He was like, well, he wanted to give us the USB thumb drive back in exchange for swag. That's called blackmail, but all right. That's actually the definition of blackmail, but whatever you want to say. It was a fair trade, sure. So it was then sent back to the corporate headquarters, but he wasn't in. So his secretary got it, put it in the drive, and then everybody heard about it. So it's again, if it's so hard, because if it's just the one video, and she is 18, according to him, if that is true. Yes, her handle was only 18, which is, yes, it gets creepy, but if she was 18, then as weird as it is completely legal, and I think we should only really be focusing on the 12 million if that is true. Now, if it is not true, or if it is true, but what the person is alleging is, no, there was more content, and that was underage, that's something that I do think that we should be focusing on, and we shouldn't let that go if it ends up being true. And the reason why is because, look, I get it. Like, you're worried about your video being demonetized, and you're worried about, if you say this on your platform, that if the video is demonetized, YouTube won't push it, and therefore your voice won't be heard anyway. But even just on your personal Twitters, anywhere else, just talk about this story, and yes, say allegedly, of course, because it is alleged, but don't let the focus just be on the 12 million and make it seem like, oh yeah, and also there may have been some child pornography. Like, no, that's a big fucking deal. That's the thing that I would argue we should be focusing on, maybe even more than the $12 million, because it's just one is the desecration of a child, who, again, we're not talking about the cam girl here. We're talking about, because we're assuming that she is, doing that of her own accord. She wants to do that. She wants to make money. God bless her, right? But anything else that might be on there, that if it is truly what this party is claiming, that's something that, again, we should just not let go. So yeah, this is rough. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this other than Randy Pitchford, get better reasons. Like, I feel like even if you're not what they claim you to be, you're still extremely incompetent and a weird person. And I know that people can have moments where they make weird decisions where on the it's just something that, if you make a decision in the moment, when looked back upon, might seem like a weird one. Okay, I get it. But it's just really odd in hindsight. Just put it out there. Like that your reasoning is, no, I downloaded it because I appreciate magic. Now, apparently he's on the record as someone who appreciates magic, so that's not a weird thing. But it's a little weird to me. Either way, guys, would love to hear what you think about the story in the chat and the comment section down below. All right, so we are in the middle of chat time. We're in a chat break. Let's look over to the chat. Hi. Let's say hi to you still wearing tidy whities. Hi. So yeah, we have people in the chat. That's lovely. So I would also like to thank all of you for watching, and if you're not in the chat, that's cool too. Love that you guys are here with us. We just got through with our Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford story. We also talked about a new Soldier Boy console earlier on in the podcast, and all of this will be available cut up in clip forms over at our Those Guys Play YouTube channel. You can find older episodes that we've done on there as well. Again, thank you all so much. I'm going to go get a drink of water. Before I do, next we're talking about a story about GameStop actually being sold and what that might actually mean for GameStop and for all of us. So, I will be right back. You can't see anything. You can't see anything. Oh, God. I've realized I'm still within earshot, so, I'm still technically here. Okay. We're back on this. Oh, God, that clip. Sorry about that, guys. I was a bit too close. All right, so, now we're back. That was a relatively quick break. So, let us talk about our next story, which is GameStop being sold. So, apparently, GameStop is being sold. But there's a bit more complications there, because it seems like they're going to announce this sale in February. That's at least what this article says right here that I have up by... Let me make sure I have the exact article up. Uh-oh, did that close? This is the problem with doing things live, everybody, by GameSpot. Okay, so this article by GameSpot that says GameStop sale to another company could be announced by mid-February. So it might just seem like, okay, that's it. Announced by mid-February, let's keep on going. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is simply due to the fact that I do worry about jobs being lost. And yes, some people are so miserable at GameStop that they might actually want to leave the company. But at the same time, though, I would hate that if this is bought and potentially merged with another company and just looked at as a game subsidiary or as a nerd subsidiary. I do worry about, multiple jobs being lost. There's so many people that, have sacrificed so much to work with this company, like working during the holidays and things like that, and also just generally working a retail job, that it would be frustrating if all of that goes to naught just because this company is purchased. The Wall Street Journal did report, by the way, that there are two companies that might actually purchase a GameStop, and one of them being Sycamore Partners and Apollo Global Management. And I don't know much about these two. Let's look a little bit into them right now just to see if perhaps they're looking at this as like a gaming arm, or if they're just like, hey, we would like to make some money. Let's see. Apollo's site says, we take many paths to value. Okay. Yeah, they seem to be, and that's another issue too, and this also worries me, is that if a company comes in and actually purchases GameStop here, what could end up happening, if you guys remember the Toys R Us situation, it wasn't just the fact that people were shopping there less. I will not deny that was probably part of the reason why Toys R Us closed down, but it was also due to a lot of debt from Bain Capital. So Bain Capital was a company that had basically they bought. I remember, yeah, they pretty much bought Toys R Us, remember correctly, and there was so much debt that was on Toys R Us though. From Bain Capital because of their business practices and them not wanting Toys R Us to change and adapt, and just all of this that ended up having Toys R Us sit back and be like, we can't pay you back, and then they were shut down. So they could not pay back Bain Capital, I believe some others as well, but I'm pretty sure Bain was the bane of their existence. You've now clicked out of the video. That's okay. So now the cool kids remain, whoever those are. Now the cool kids, whoever else is watching this. Yeah, so Apollo might be purchasing this. Either way, it's something to look out for, and it's something to, I don't want to say worry about necessarily, because some people who are, from a consumer perspective, some people who dislike GameStop, potentially they can only get better. I don't know how they could get worse. Their online site is iffy every now and again. They list things terribly because they'll still list it as if it's on sale and it's in stock. Then you click on it and it says that it's not in stock. So I think their website can use some updating. Their app is better than their website, but just how about you update the website? Not everyone has a mobile phone. So I just feel as if from a consumer perspective, it could get better. It could get better, but I do worry about those jobs, and I have a lot of friends that work at GameStop, so I do worry about their job security in all of this. And also, you don't know where the company can go. Yes, it is named GameStop, duh. But you don't know if potentially they'll double down on things like Funko Pops and other collectibles. Or maybe they shelve all of those and they just focus on games, which actually would be nice. But that still is a chunk of the market. And then you have to think about, the Funko Pop market and things like that. So I do wonder where this story could go. Looking here, the article also talks about the fact that some things that I've talked about on previous Matt Rants, how former CEO Paul Raines, he actually passed away in March 2018 at the age of 53. And then we had Michael Mahler come in, who after 3 months left and said he left for personal reasons. Now, he was supposed to be an interim CEO. He was not there for the long haul, but that did not look good for the company's future. And now Shane Kim is there, who is the former boss of Xbox during the Xbox 360's days, and he's still with the company. So, I mean, again, the thing that also worries me as well, and I was talking about this earlier with Randy Pitchford, I'm worried that if there is trouble with the company and people are laid off, that someone like Shane Kim will be able to leave the company with millions of dollars. And look, it's not Shane Kim's fault that GameStop is where it is right now, because again, he just got here. He just got to the party. But it would be frustrating if he's able to get out of this with, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then a bunch of different GameStop employees are getting the pink slip. So because Sycamore Partners and Apollo Global don't seem to be gaming companies or companies that usually invest a lot in gaming, things might just stay a-okay and not really change up. But again, it's just something you worry about. Again, you have friends there, you have family there. You want to make sure that they have job security, even if it's a shitty job. You want to make sure that their jobs aren't in jeopardy. So yeah, either way though, even though this is the case, tell me what you guys think down below. Do you care about GameStop's demise, potential demise, or undemise? Tell me what you think down below. I worry about it because even if it's like Matt, put your friends aside, put your family aside, it's still something that a lot of people are going to have to suffer from, and then that's more, unemployed folks looking for jobs. And we don't want this to affect the gaming industry as well, and GameStop exclusives and things like that, and other markets that definitely rely on GameStop. I mean, we've seen some of the fallout with Toys R Us and how that's affected toys in the U.S., but of course games were there as well. Worried about a similar situation with games specifically. So, yeah. All right, guys. So, moving on to our next story, we're talking about Sonic Fox and some people talking about or being upset at the fact that he consistently talks about the fact that he's gay. So, we're going to jump into that story in 3, 2, 1. So, moving on to our next story, we're talking about Sonic Fox because recently there's been some, I don't know if I want to call it controversy. Some people could call it controversy, some people might not call it controversy, but there's been some controversy surrounding Sonic Fox and him discussing his sexuality. So if you don't know, Sonic Fox is gay. So he posts about that a lot, especially on his Twitter, and people are actually getting on him for it, not in the good way, but they're getting on him for it saying like, hey, why are you consistently talking about this and why does this matter? So I have a lot of friends in the LGBTQ plus community, and so I wanted to bring my perspective into this and talk about why it does matter in a way. So, yes, some people are saying, hey, don't your accomplishments mean more than your sexuality? And frankly, I do believe that they do. And a lot of my friends in the LGBTQ plus community would say the same, that their accomplishments mean more than their sexuality. But meaning more doesn't mean that something should either be erased or not be talked about, or kind of just, yes, it's funny. Yes, more means more than you would think. Oh, but that means that it's lesser than. But it's not the idea that it is lesser than. I know mathematically it just seems like that would be the case, but that's not how people in that community would look at it. So when looking at something like this, why Sonic Fox talks about being gay as much as he does through tweets and in speeches and things like that, be they written or be they out loud, it's due to the fact that he wants to make sure, and other people in the community would want to make sure, that you don't forget about who they are and the community that they are in. So basically, when talking about sexuality, and yes, this does tie into gaming in some way or another. When talking about sexuality, usually the assumed, and I'm happy if you don't think it is the assumed, because I don't think it's the assumed, but there are many people out there who think that the assumed is you are straight, like that, as if that is a default on a character model, if you will. So you have Sonic Fox and other people in the community who are out there saying, hey, no, I am gay, or I am trans, or I am someone else in this community. Hi, how you doing? So that's kind of what Sonic Fox here is trying to do. Now, yes, it might seem like to some people who do get it as if it's, overkill, or to some people who don't get it, because they're like, and I say get it in terms of, hey, look, if you get it, quote unquote, you're like, look, I understand that, straight is not the norm, and that's okay. That's if you get it. If you don't get it, you still think that straight's the norm, but you know that he's gay, so you're in that camp as well. But if you're getting so upset about it, you do have to understand, you have to sit back and think, why are you getting upset? Really though, why are you getting upset? Are you getting upset because he's consistently talking about it? Because someone can consistently talk about anything. Would talking about anything get you upset? Like, you do have to ask yourself, why is it about the fact that he's gay? Like, if he said consistently that he was straight, would that upset you? If so, okay. But at the same time, like, because the thing is, look, I can see it and be like, oh, okay, and then just move on. But it's just odd to sit there and be angry about it, in my opinion, to be like, Sonic Fox. Because if you're sitting there looking at Sonic Fox like, how dare you say that again? Why are you that angry when he's talking about being gay? If it's repetition, fair, I guess, but again, why are you enraged by it? Why are you furious by it? Why does it upset you that much? If you don't want to hear him talk about it, then the question does become, why are you following him on Twitter, right? If you don't want to hear him talk about it, why not just mute him? Or, even if you want to, block him. Like, you don't have to sit here and listen to someone talk about something if you don't want to hear them talk about it. But maybe it's because I'm also not in that community. I don't really follow a lot of what Sonic Fox does. I do follow him on Twitter, so yes, again, I'll see it and I'll be like, okay, and then I'll move on with my day. But it's still something that I don't really understand why people seem to actually be upset by this as much as they seem to be. Because for me, it's just like, all right, and then we move on. So for me, it's just something, but I want to talk about this again because it did seem like something that many people were starting to kind of drum up, and I just wanted to be a voice that says, hey, here is why he does this, instead of being an angry voice that's just like, stop doing it. Because again, it's just like, dude, just let people be who they are, let people talk about what they want to talk about. Yes, you can say if he was oversharing, right? If he was talking about the dudes that he's with, I totally get where you'd be like, hey, listen, I don't like talking about PDA, and I don't like talking about DA, the public displays of affection or just displays of affection. So, like, I get it if he was being in depth about who he was with, in very graphic ways. very. I get it, but at the end of the day, he's not doing that. He's just coming out and he's just saying, "Hey, I'm gay." And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And also another thing too is that you're not actually, because if I was having a personal conversation with Sonic Fox and he consistently said that often in the conversation, then I'd be like, all right, dude, like you told me before, I know. But the difference too is that when it comes to social media and how different that it is than having a normal conversation, even though for some people it's replaced that normal conversation, when you aren't DMing someone, when you aren't direct messaging or Facebook messaging, that's the better term, when you're Facebook messaging or direct messaging or anything like that, when you are just talking to people via a tweet, it's not just talking to someone who you've already talked to before, who already knows your situation. It's talking to everybody, right? Every single human being that may ever follow you or has ever followed you, or even with Twitter's new system, if you like a tweet, then all of a sudden you'll see that person's tweets. I see more tweets that friends of mine or followers of mine that have liked rather than they've actually tweeted, which is a little frustrating. But still, so yeah, I just see it as a situation where, you know, he's just like, you might think, hey, I already know about this. I've already, you know, talked about this with him. But you're not the target audience then, right? You aren't the person that he's talking to. So then you don't have to listen. You can be like, okay, cool. And then just move on, right? So, and also just him saying 2 words, I'm gay. It's not like it's a long paragraph of you know, every single time where you think it's going to be like something else completely different. And then like, you know, like the Loch Ness Monster, he just throws in an I'm gay somewhere in there. Or he somehow manages to use the game at you, which is still frustrating to me even in 2019. It's not like that, right? He's just 2 words. You move on with your day. But I think that it does have a greater message, and I think it's a good message, right? Just taking away any kind of stigmatization around those words, and also taking the default, if you will, right? The assumed default of I'm straight, removing that, and just making that seem like it is the norm, because that's a good thing. I mean, if you disagree, I don't know what to tell you. Like, to me, that's a good thing. So I support Sonic Fox and what he's doing. And if you don't, if you're like, hey, look, but I already know, then again, just, you don't have to listen. You can just keep on scrolling by. You can mute him. You can block him. That's cool. But his message is still a bigger one, in my opinion. All right. So we're just cutting that there. Let's see. Our next story is on the Sega Nomad. Before I look at that, let's look over to our chat. Nobody in the chat. Dope. So moving on to talk about the Sega Nomad story. This is one that I did not think I would be talking about in 2019. Very, very odd, awesome story. So this one is actually, like, I'm really hyped about the story, but again, did not think we would be discussing this in 2019. So let me get the article right here. Open that baby up. Where are you? Sega Nomad story. Where did you? There, found it. Okay, so we'll be starting this in 3, 2, 1. All right, guys, so moving on to our next story, we're talking about the Sega Nomad. But interestingly enough, not the Sega Nomad that everybody used to know, the one that probably is going for way too much online. I'm not looking up those prices. I don't want to add to that calamity, but I'm sure they're not going for cheap online. Yet, Retrobit is releasing a new Sega Nomad. What? So, here, and by the way, if you don't know about the Sega Nomad is a handheld Sega console that could actually play older Sega Genesis games. However, at the time, the Nomad did have some compatibility issues. So the Nomad specifically had compatibility issues. We're doing this live, folks. Compatibility issues with, want to make sure I get the exact game here, come on, where's the exact game? It's in the article itself. Come on, game. Game. Where did you go? This is why doing this live is terrible. What I will say, though, is, speaking on the new Sega Nomad, it does not seem like it will have Mega Drive support, which is frustrating because Japanese games are amazing and usually much cheaper than US games. Yes, they're in Japanese, but of course, back then, not every single game is text-heavy. Some you might just be able to play without any text whatsoever. By the way, Virtual Racing was the game that, when looking at something like the Genesis 3, had issues. I'm sorry, the Nomad did not have those original issues. It was the Genesis 3 that had them, and the reason why that's relevant is because, of course, the Nomad was made by Sega, so Sega had all those parts available. When third-party companies come in and make any kind of clones, be it of Sega Genesises, and even with the Sega Genesis 3, yes, that had Sega Genesis in the name, but that wasn't developed by Sega. It was a license by Majesco. We've talked about Majesco before on other Matt Rants. Definitely look them up. Very interesting history about them. So, when looking at the Sega Nomad, though, we don't know if it'll have compatibility issues, which does suck because there are certain Sega Genesis games that use the Genesis hardware in ways, not just like Virtual Racing, but others that actually rely on that hardware to do different puzzles and things like that. So it is a little troublesome, a little worrisome. However, yes, even though that is the case, that could be a potential issue. When looking at the fact that this could play the majority of the Sega Genesis library as a handheld, also that it is Retrobit, who does have they don't have a spotty history, so that's a good thing. I don't think they have a spotty history. If you do, tell me in the chat, tell me comment section down below, but I'm pretty sure they've actually been on point with some of their consoles. They've actually been pretty on point with some of their releases of retro video games. I actually have Holy Diver up there. I love that collection. I wish it was translated to English, but again, most of it's in English anyway. Most of it's Romanized, but the problem is there's certain things that aren't in English, but they're not like Japanese texts that I can't read. I can just read them in English text, but they're still Japanese. Either way, though, the game's still playable. Like that game. Going to do a review on it on our Those Guys Play channel in the near future. But I liked it regardless. So when it comes to their video games, I haven't seen any issue with them, but maybe there are with their hardware, so this isn't as happy-go-lucky as I'm making it seem. But for me, I think it's interesting because I do have some friends who are fans of the Sega Nomad, and it did seem like that was just something that was dead in the water. No one was going to take a look at it. Yes, you'd have other companies coming in like At Games, who would release, portable Genesises, but they would be, with games added onto it, not Sega Nomad like, where you could actually plug in your original Sega Genesis cartridges, which to me is amazing. Also, where this could potentially do a lot better than the original Sega Nomad is that it actually, the original Sega Nomad had 6 AA batteries, and apparently it used them all up, all 6, in 3 hours. So that does become a problem. Now, of course, in this case, I'm sure they're going to include some way to charge it. That definitely would be a way to improve this thing. Instead of having rechargeable batteries, which were also a little bit problematic. And another thing is this can do as well is it could output to the TV in HDMI. So the fact that this thing could actually output in HDMI, so if you want to record footage, now I know some people might say, well, why don't you just use an original Sega Genesis at this point? But here's the thing, though. If the emulation on here is not spotty, so if it's amazing emulation and it's HDMI, you can do HDMI outputs, that would potentially mean that this is better than most Sega Genesis consoles on the market. Like Sega Genesis, clone consoles on the market. Because, of course, the original Sega Genesis does not output HDMI. So, yes, you can record footage from it, but it'll look a little iffy. And, yes, you could say, well, Matt, just get the, why don't you get the FrameMeister? It's like $400, man. Like, that's a lot of money. So, putting FrameMeister aside and stuff like that, if you, looking at something like this, it would be very interesting, especially if this is in the $100 price point, around that area. To be able to spend money on this, it plays most of the Sega Genesis library, and it outputs in HDMI with a clear picture. And of course, that screen, which we can see here in the article listed, the screen looks amazing. But again, we can't see what it's playing just yet, so we'll have to see how it would look. But still, I do think that would be very interesting. And as long as it isn't close to $200, if it's like $180, I think it'll be a bit too niche. But if it's 100, maybe 120 at most, that would be amazing. I would potentially be interested in picking one up because I would like to see how it can actually output HDMI. Because yes, there's a lot of cool clone consoles out there, but still, some people have talked about the HDMI output being a little spotty, depending on where you're getting it. So I would be interested to check this thing out. Tell me if you guys would in the comment section down below or in the chat. And I just think that it's really cool that we're getting to a point, even still in 2019, where these, older game consoles are still being looked at. These handhelds are still being looked at and improved in ways, if you will. And one thing I will say is I hope the D-pad looks good, but I hope that the D-pad is sturdy, because I'll say that's the one thing that any clone console will always be, it handhelds or be it just a new controller for a physical game console. The D-pad, there's always some issue now and again. So if this D-pad has issues, that I think would be a detriment to this console. So let's hope that the D-pad works. That's what I'll say as we're wrapping this one up. Okay, guys. So I'm going to take a quick break. But before I take that quick water break, let's see what's next on the docket. Let's see what's next on here. What is next is... Oh, okay, yes. The SNES Nintendo Switch leak, which very YouTube thumbnail fashion. So I will be right back. And yeah, in the meantime, just have some fun. Have some fun. I'll be right back. Oh, God. Oh, my legs. Oh, God, my legs. Oh, God. So anyway, you guys can still technically hear me. Life is extremely painful. Don't grow old. All right. Oh, God. Oh, look at my chest. Look at my glorious, glorious chest. Ah, jeez. Oh, don't get old, everyone. Just stay the same age you are. Find a local fountain of youth and just absorb it into yourself. Woo. Okay, so let's look at the chat. Let's do a little quick chat break. Hello, chat. No one's in the chat. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to what we're actually talking about here, which again is the SNES Nintendo Switch leak. So, moving on to this next story, this Nintendo Switch leak. There was some data mined, interesting stuff. So this, I don't know how to feel about this, because some people are saying this means that we have to have SNES games coming to the service. But here's the thing. We've already had discussion from Nintendo that SNES games were coming to the service. And then it was removed, and I assume it was removed because they wanted SNES Classics maybe to sell more and sell out and get rid of all that stock. Also because they potentially saw that they, let's focus on NES games at first. It sucks because Business Talk would say stuff like, oh, we have to focus on one game system. We can't confuse the market. And it's like, no. People have had NES games for so many years now in so many different formats. Yes, there are new kids that are getting into this and they don't have access to these games legally. And that's fair. But still, unless they get an NES Classic, but still, it's like, look, guys, we've had these games for so long in so many different ways via virtual shops like the Wii, Wii U, 3DS. And also, by the way, if you guys remember too, releasing some of these on Game Boy Advance cartridges for the Game Boy Advance. So you've had so many different ways to get these that, it would just make sense to kind of switch things up every now and again. So, but either way, back to the actual story at hand, which I will actually link this article in the chat. See, guys, we're learning on the go. Now, if you're watching this through our YouTube channel, it's in the description box down below. Either way, copy pasting this. So let's look at the, let's go over to the article again. So this article, it says that in the data mining, they found a bunch of different games that potentially are games that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch online service. Now, let's talk about the games first before I even talk about my opinion on it. The games are Super Mario Kart, Super Soccer, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Demon's Crest, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, Stunt Race FX, Kirby's Dream Course, Poppin' Twin B, Star Fox, Contra 3, Kirby Superstar, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, F-Zero, Star Fox 2, Super Punch-Out, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Super Mario All-Stars, and Breath of Fire 2. So, Star Fox 2 is very interesting, and that's the one that kind of seems to me like they either wanted to just test out every game that they could on this, and these are just games that they tested, not games that they plan on just flipping a switch and releasing, Or the reason why Reggie came out and said, hey, we're not doing any more NES and SNES classics is so those could then sell out, and then they could release Star Fox 2 on this and not seem like they're divvying up the market, or they're diluting, not diluting the market, that they're, splitting up the market. Now, I think that's dumb, because I think that's a dumb idea in terms of the idea of, oh no, the market is split if Star Fox 2 is on multiple platforms. But again, there's just this business idea, this idea of, oh no, if we have, and this happened with the PS1 Classic, I've talked about this before on Matt Rants, oh no, we potentially can't have Crash Bandicoot on the PS1 Classic because it's already out as in an HD collection on the PS4, and it's like, yeah, but who's going to spend $240 or $640, $440, a lot of money just to get that one game, when they could potentially get a PS1 Classic at $100 and feel more secure in that purchase. You know, people aren't just going to make that jump and make that leap, even if there's one game that they really want, unless they have that kind of cash. So people aren't going to sit here and be like, oh, I don't want to have an SNES Classic for $80 to play Star Fox 2. I will only play Star Fox 2 if it's available on the Nintendo Switch online service. But it's like, wait, but you have to pay $305 just to get access to that game. And then there's also controllers that you might pay for as well for that experience. Why would you do all that rather than just paying $80? So, but I'm worried that might have been their thought. It does worry me that it is, and it worries me that, again, these games potentially are just tests. Not that SNES games would never come to the service, because that's hilarious. Of course they'll come to the service, but I do worry that they're not going to be as... it's not as transparent as we think that it is. Also, something that was very interesting. So again, this data leak was done by at Cappuccino Heck and Simon 1844 and someone else named at Oatmeal Dome. God, I love these Twitter handles. Oatmeal Dome said that he found that there was the Catchy, which is the NES Classic emulator, basically. There's Canoe, which relates to the SNES Classic, and then there's something called Hiyoko and Count. Now, people are saying online that Count might seem like that's like a way for them to, just a name for a placeholder name, so that they could end the list, right? Like, it ends on Count, and that's just how the system reads it, right? For Hiyoko, because clearly these are just random names that are used, random, like even with Catchy, it's not like that relates to the NES exactly. I know there's the Hack Chi, but I don't think that's actually related to the NES Classic emulator software. If it is, correct me down below. But when it comes to Hiyoko, people are wondering if that's N64, and maybe, again, that's why... or at least I'm wondering if that's N64. Maybe that's why Reggie said we're not having N64 Classic to come out, because they'll have N64 games on the NES, or on the Nintendo Switch Online service, alongside NES and SNES games. Would be interesting if that's the case, but I don't know. I mean, I just think that, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't not happen. So it's not like we're not going to have SNES and N64 games. Would be silly if we never had those games. But to say that this means that all of these games are coming out, that we're having Star Fox 2 and a bunch of these other games come out, especially if they're saying that they're coming out, within the next few months, I don't know. It would be nice, because I want them to change things up, but I think that Nintendo's going to stick to their 2 to 3 a month situation with the NES, with NES games. And that eventually they'll go, we've released enough NES first party and third party titles, here you go, and they'll just stay that course. Unless a bunch of people, because the thing is, people talk about complaining and online petitions and things like that. Really, you vote with your wallet. So if a bunch of people have an exodus from the Nintendo Switch Online service, and then when Nintendo asks them why, they say it's because there wasn't a good variety of games on the service, you bet you're behind Nintendo will actually put more SNES or N64 games on there. But as of right now, I feel as if they don't think they're threatened, then they're just not going to do anything by it. So really, what matters more is what you say with your wallet, rather than what you say out loud just to them, even directly. Heck, even if you were able to talk to Reggie, I feel like he would be like, look, people are buying it. You know, like people are buying it. When they're not paying for it, when they're not subscribing to it, that's when things get drastic. So, while I do think that these will come out, I don't think that, maybe not all of these, but I think that some of these games will be coming out maybe late 2019, the earliest. I hope sooner, I really do, but I don't know, guys. But tell me what you think down below. Would love to hear what you guys have to say about all this. Let's see here. Let's go back to talk. Okay, no one is in the chat still. Dope. That's fine. That's cool. I wasn't able to actually talk about this on our website, so I'll be telling people about this after the fact, which will be funny. But we did stream. Not that we are streaming. We did stream. Anyway, so let's talk about our last story of the podcast. We're talking about a potential mini Switch in 2019. So let's go over to the article at hand. 2 different articles about this, by the way. Let's see. Let's post. Yeah, I'll be posting both of these in the chat before we begin, just so you guys get to look at it. Look at it. Look at it. I want all of you to look at it. Let's see. One. And where's the other one? Oh, do I only have one? No, we do have 2 articles. Great. Okay. And then here's the second article. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Boom. Okay. So we got both up, which is awesome. And now let's move on to talking about it. So, 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. So, moving on to our next and the last story of this podcast. We are talking about gaming analysts and their predictions, because they're predicting that we are not only getting a Switch Pro, but we're also getting a Switch Lite. Personally, I prefer Diet Switch. Diet Switch. It's a Switch, but with less of the overheating. So with Switch Lite and with Switch Pro, we have, so we've talked about the idea of a Switch Pro before. I thought that it could happen. I just thought that it happening in early 2019 would be rather silly, because the Switch is still selling very well, and I would imagine it happening at the earliest late 2019. But something that I could see happening actually much sooner than later is a light version of the Switch, a smaller version of a Switch. And the reason why is because while, you know, and these gaming analysts are saying, oh, the reason why is because it'll be easier for kids to play and stuff like that. I don't know about that necessarily, but I do, because I think that kids are doing just fine with the Switch. They can, you know, easily use the Joy-Cons separately and have the Switch, you know, set up somewhere, not necessarily docked, but could just have it leaning on something and then just use that. So I don't think that the kids have to grip the sides as if it's attached to the dock, or they could just use a Pro controller depending on the game. So I don't know if that's exactly happening, but when it comes to people who potentially look at the Switch and think, look, it's nice and it is on the go, quote unquote, but I will admit I do feel a little awkward taking my Switch out with me. Even if I had a Switch case, it would still just feel like I can't put it in my pocket. Now, I don't know if this new Switch Lite, quote unquote, would be able to fit in your pocket, but when I look at older handhelds, even ones that I still might take with me on the go today, the reason why I like them so much is because I feel like I can just put them in my pocket and walk away. Now, yes, the PSP, even though some people still did that, I feel weird about ruining the PSP screen by putting it in my pocket, but still, it feels like you can put it in your bag and not be worried about maybe the Joy-Cons having issues, or the Joy-Cons, you know, having issues because they're clicked into the Switch. Just a bunch of other things, and yes, if you have a carrying case, I get it, but still, I don't know, it just feels weird for me to pull it out on public transit, even though I've never been mugged, thank God, but I would still feel weird pulling something that large out and just trying to play with it like everything's fine. But if it was smaller, I do think that that would be very interesting. And I just bought a Switch, so I wouldn't buy a Switch Lite, but I would be interested to see that one first, potentially in late 2019 or in 2019, rather than a Switch Pro. Now, yes, I would love a Switch with more third-party support if it is a little bit more powerful, and a Switch that has Twitch support just in it, because that would be amazing. I'd be able to do a lot of Switch games just right here for you guys and through the Switch, instead of actually having to hook up a TV and get my Elgato or my Roxio and, you know, an OBS and everything like that. So I would love having Twitch support just in the Nintendo Switch, but I don't see a Pro happening, because a Lite, to me, here's the thing, right, guys? A Lite makes it seem as if, oh, we will just, you don't have to get it. You can only get it if you want something a little bit a little bit different from your Switch experience. But a Switch Pro, and especially having games that would only be available on the Switch Pro, to me makes it seem like they're saying, hey, this is a Switch that you will never be able to, like, you've just afforded a Switch, you've just bought a Switch, now you have to pay for this Switch that if it's more than $300, then that would even seem like a bigger slap in the face to some people. And not only is it more than $300, but you can only play certain games will not be available on your older Switch. Haha. But at least with the Switch Lite, if you say, hey, maybe certain Switch games aren't available on this that are already out, rather than new games wouldn't be available on it, it might be a better sell, because people can go, okay, I know what's happening going into this. But if you've bought a normal Switch at any point, even when it first came out, or if you're like me who just bought it this past holiday season, it just seems like a huge slap in the face to say, yeah, certain games, new games will not work on this or not work on the original one, because the new one is so advanced and is so much better than this one that you just spent $300 on. Haha. Even if there's a huge price cut, it would still, to the original Switch, it would still be frustrating regardless. So, but let's talk about exactly what some of these analysts have had to say. So, Dr. Sirkin Toto, in no way related to our Toto, as far as I know, Anthony Toto, but Dr. Sirkin Toto says that while the 2019 Switch Pro has already been reported in development by the Wall Street Journal, I also think Nintendo will offer a quote-unquote Switch Lite, or just keep the current version at a lower price to cover the lower end of the spectrum and offset sinking 3DS sales. And then Michael Pachter says, Nintendo will launch a fully handheld version of the Switch at $200. I expect the device to have the same screen but with Joy-Cons built into the body and no docking station. Since it can't, quote-unquote, switch from handheld to console, it's hard to guess what they will call it, but let's assume Game Boy, and of course he's kidding. Now, the thing is, though, is I don't know if because apparently, was it Sirkin? I don't know who it was directly. I want to make sure I get it right though. But people were speculating that this might mean that the 3DS is on, is at the end of its life cycle, and I don't think that it is. And the reason why I'm saying, look, I'm not saying that. To be fair, I don't have a lot of 3DS games, so maybe I'm like, I don't want it to go so quick. I don't even have a lot of games. But I also think it's due to the fact that I don't think that Nintendo would this quickly. And it's only been, it's not even been 2 years yet. I don't think that they would this quickly kill off the 3DS, especially when they've released some 3DS games rather recently for it. And they would kill it off while making new versions of a Switch. I'm not saying that they would fully support 3DS as much as they have been recently, like releasing an older version of Luigi's Mansion on it and a bunch of other games that have been coming out on it, like ports, sure, but really good ports. I don't think they would be doing that. And obviously they wouldn't be releasing, I mean, heck, we have, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, not on the 3DS, but on the Switch. So of course, there's clearly been changes there. But I just don't think that this would mean that the 3DS is dead as a door now. I don't think that a Nintendo Switch Lite would mean that. But as we're wrapping this thing up, I want to hear what you guys think down below. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Do you feel as if that there might not be a Switch Lite, or that there might be a Switch Pro before a Switch Lite? Again, talk to me about all that stuff in the comment section or in the chat. Would love to hear what you guys have to say about all this. So, we are wrapping up our first ever podcast on Twitch. Our first ever Matt Rants on Twitch. I hope everything went well. I really do, because there seems to be some trouble with my playback, but looking at my recording or my streaming, everything seems just fine. So I hope that everything is just fine. I really would be frustrated if this stream did not go well. That would be troublesome, to say the least. Either way, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Several of you, and thank you all so much who are also tuning into this separated as clips over at our Those Guys Play YouTube channel, which again, search up Those Guys Play, you can find it. Thank you all so much, love you all, and if you want to hear the audio versions of these, then you can actually go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/TG Productions, and if you give to the $2 tier, you get audio versions of every single Matt Rants that I've ever done. Thank you all so much. Love you all. Take care. And tune in next time for another episode of Matt Rants. We'll be doing these once a week on Twitch. And if there are any changes, we will post about that on our social media, like our Facebook, facebook.com/ThoseGuysOnTheRadio, our Twitter, which is @ThoseGuysRadio, or our main website, which is tgproduction.net. So, love you all. Take care. Tune in next time.